Week in review, Monday, July 10th, 2023. As always, I'll kick this off and start with comments first, and then I'll go into a couple talking points. Petroline underscore performance coach at Petroline underscore performance coach. Is Tia on the demo team? No, but that would be really cool. I think she's got a lot going on, so we did not ask her. I doubt she would have been able to do it with all the stuff she has going on. They're going to have a presence at the games with a booth, and they're going to be doing activations, so that would have been cool though. Same thing with Rich. Should have asked him. We didn't ask him either. Same. I doubt he would have agreed to it. At IronKid underscore 5, would the CrossFit Games go international even if the majority of the athletes are USA based? Absolutely, we should go international at some point. I hope sooner than later, but no firm decision on that yet. I think, and it's not going to be next year or even the year after, but sometime in the near future, we should definitely think about taking the actual Games event international. At Christine Young 9327, this may have been asked, LOL, but what's the story behind Panda Express at the games at the beginning, LOL? Two LOLs. So Panda Express, they were a sponsor of the 2008 games, I think. Maybe the 9 too, or maybe it was the 9, one of those. Not the first, but the second. And second or third. They, their CEO at the time, Tom Davin, who would later become a good friend, former Marine Corps officer. He was a CrossFitter, and he was running Panda Express at the time. And so he reached out, and as an avid CrossFitter and someone with military ties now, or at that time was the CEO of Panda Express, reached out to us and said, hey, I'd love to be involved with the games. I'd love to sponsor. We said, sure, we'd love to have you, but let's just try to have high protein, low carb offerings. And they did, and they offered vegetable bowls with a lot of meat. And Tom Davin would later move on to 511, and he was the CEO of 511, helped grow them tremendously. And while he was there, that's how we got the vests. I was looking to see if I have one in here, in play at the games. So Panda Express sponsor when he was the CEO. 511 was involved when he was the CEO there. Now he's moved on, and he is co-CEO, I think is his title, of Black Rifle Coffee. Still keep in touch with him. Really good guy, a lot of experience, super sharp. And so that's the story with Panda Express. At Mike Cassidy HF, 2 questions. 1, are you rethinking your decision to delete and erase all of your games programming ideas? I think you mentioned it on Sevon's show. And 2, how has it been transitioning back into games leadership? Had you stayed close, arm's length, or far away during your time? Thanks again for hosting Broken Science Initiative. First question, no, I'm not. I don't regret deleting all of my games programming ideas. It was part of the process. I think if I go back heavily into programming future games, I'll just re-enter that process of laying stuff out and coming up with ideas. So I don't regret it. How was it transitioning back to the games leadership? Pretty good. The teams, I've worked with a majority of that team for years, some of them decades. So that aspect was easy. It was obviously a challenge with the change in terms of just such a big change before the games. But they're all pros, and we've worked closely together in the past. I had mostly stayed pretty far away just to give that team their space and allow them to do their thing without my influence when I wasn't involved, because obviously I have a lot of thoughts and opinion on the games and the event in general. So while I was not involved, I stayed away. Obviously now heavily back involved. At Chugs011, hey Dave, would you be interested in bringing the Invitational back? Do you think it would be able to fit in the calendar between Rogue, Wadapalooza, etc.? No, not really interested in bringing the Invitational back. I think as a lot, especially the people I work with know, I like to try new things and I like to move things forward and experiment with new ideas. I don't want to go back to the Invitational, kind of because it's an old property and it's something we did for a number of years. So if we were going to bring anything back, I think we'd have to look at something new and exciting and different, because I'm not a big fan of just recycling what we've done in the past because we've done it in the past. At Beach House CrossFit, Jocko was cool. Opinions on the grip standard. Will there be further and better clarification? So the standard there, the first piece of the standard was very clear. The second picture that we included on there is what caused a lot of confusion. The grip has to, when it's strapped to your wrist, it cannot go further than your longest finger. And so if you just look at that piece, when your grip is in your hand not doing anything, that's what we're going to use going forward for that standard. The photo on the right, as you guys all saw, athletes showed, it can go past the fingers when on the bar, even with those normal grips. That's fine, just as long as when your hand is like this, it's not past the longest finger. That's what we're looking for. Sorry for the confusion. We definitely muddied the water with that one, and we will make it very clear to the athletes at the event, and because this rule for right now just is for this event coming up, and we'll assess it at the end of the season. So alongside that, we also announced cuts, and so as always, cuts are incredibly controversial. Cuts are oftentimes not that popular. People really have strong opinions on them, fans and athletes alike. And the one of the things I would say with cuts is, as unpopular as it is, that doesn't mean it's not the right direction to go. I'm not in this role as to win popularity points. I'm in it to make the right decisions that I think drive the sport forward, and I'll go into those in a few minutes, what I think those are that help it and why the cuts are justified. But oftentimes the hardest decisions that we make as leaders are the most unpopular decisions. So I try to make the right, what I believe is the right decision based on a number of factors, which is oftentimes not popular. And so if I just wanted to always make the popular decisions, I think it would be a disservice to the role and a disservice to who I am. Let's take a little history lesson in terms of CrossFit Games events. 2007, we didn't have any cuts because it was just the first year, the first open sign up for the CrossFit Games. We had about 70 athletes, 60 or 70 athletes show up. We didn't even have the concept of cuts in mind at that point. 2008, we had 200 athletes show up, and again, still didn't understand what we had on our hands at the time. Didn't have any cuts. Also, though, 2008, we didn't have any workout longer than 5 minutes. Interestingly, from that period after those games, that year influenced heavily a couple things. One, these really short and fast workouts at the time, kind of like CrossFit football like workouts, and the chest to bar pull-up, because we introduced the chest to bar pull-up at the 2008 games. Then in 2009, we added a layer of qualification to get to the games, and I think we had 50 or 60 individual athletes show up to the games. And that year was the first year we introduced cuts. And we introduced, I think after 2 workouts, we cut the bottom 10. Then after another 2, we cut another 10, and we just kept cutting and cutting until I think we ended up around 20. Throughout the years after that, pretty much almost every year, but there might have been 1 or 2 where we did not, we had cuts, and the application of the cuts was different almost every time. Sometimes we had cuts, we cut all the way down to 10 one year, which was really unpopular, and really even like a lot of people did not like that. I didn't have as much problem with it. Then the next year, which was a few years ago, we course corrected and cut down to 20. One of the issues we've also had with the cut is introducing them late in the game, letting athletes know a week or 2 before the event. So this year, with announcing the cuts almost a month out, we put them out in front of everybody and we let them know, hey, here's the deal. There will be cuts, and this is what it's going to look like. Even to back up to the 2008 games, we learned a lot there in terms of the cutting people right after 2 events wasn't enough. I mean, wasn't enough. Was overly aggressive. So throughout all the years we've had cuts, even when we cut down to 10, I kind of liked it. Yes, I think that's a little too much. Where we are now, I think we've had almost 2 decades of learnings from the cuts and what works and what doesn't. And I think the cuts we're doing now are A, very appropriate, and B, incredibly fair. And what I mean by that is we've announced already that the workouts or the games for the teams and individuals start on Thursday, they go to Sunday. We also announced with these cuts that after Friday, we will cut down to 30 athletes. Then after Saturday night, we'll cut down to 20 athletes. So if you look at that first stage, what that means after Friday, that's 2 days of competition. 2 days of competition, and then we are going to cut the bottom 10 athletes, call it. So completely fair and completely you can assume in any given CrossFit Games day, there's 2 to 3, 2 to 4 workouts. Typically, let's call it on average, if there's 2 to 4, let's call it 3. So there's 3 workouts on Thursday, 3 workouts on Friday, and then we'll have our first set of cuts. So that's 2 full days of competition and possibly on average 6 events before any athlete is cut. And at that point, it's the bottom 10. So that gives you almost the same amount of events. I don't know how many events they did at regionals this year, but in years past, we did around 6 events at regionals. So almost a regional's worth of events before getting cut. Side note, maybe this is also a messaging issue in terms of we should have never called it cuts, but even phrase it as opportunities to advance. So there's stages where the athletes advance on to the next stage. I'll talk about that a little later. So some of the reasons why we have cuts, some of the decisions that goes into supporting the notion of cuts. The fans. So on scene, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of competition. There's really long days. When you don't have any cuts, the days are continually long, day after day after day, for 4 days. And actually, since the game starts with the Masters, for some people, it's several days of just these epic 9 to 7, 9 to 8, 9 to 9 p.m. Schedule. It doesn't give people an opportunity to take a break from the competition. It doesn't give the fans an opportunity to unplug, which is, I don't think, beneficial or in their best interest for an experience piece. Fans at home. So the viewers, the people watching online or on TV, it's again really challenging to have these, if you're a big fan and you want to consume the content, having days that get more focused and reduced viewing time, it's beneficial. Not having to watch 6 or 7 heats, not having to watch 4 heats on Saturday or Sunday when there's people who aren't even close to being in contention anymore. It's a better fan experience on multiple levels for the on-scene viewer and for the at-home viewer. The staff, the judges, the people running the event, they actually, after several days, being able to have a little more, even let's just take the judge example, being able to disconnect, take some breaks so they can come back for the next heats with reduced athletes after several days of judging several hundred athletes, allows them to refocus and stay on task and really put all their energy into less events and more focused events, essentially. So I think for our staff, for the organizers, for the people running it, for the volunteers, for the judges, less moving parts, less heats, help them operate at a very high level throughout the week. Our vendors, so on site, so all these things I'm saying right now are different things taken into consideration when making decisions like this for the cuts. So I talk about fans, I talk about staff, I talk about judges, staff judges, even the vendors. So what I mean about that is this is not why we're doing it, but one of the things we take into consideration when making this decision. The vendors are, when we have, again, this 9 to 7 massive competition going on, no cuts, Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, and nobody's, there's just small breaks in between all the heats or in between movement to a new event. It's even a disservice to the vendors to allow people to give people big breaks, to give the fans big breaks, to give the staff big breaks, to go out there and engage with all of those people. And what are the significance of vendors and sponsors? They help enable all of this, obviously. So cuts also enable us to take the vendor experience into consideration. Finally, with the athletes. So we've talked about multiple different, call it stakeholders, to use a word that I'm not a huge fan of, multiple different stakeholders involved in these decisions to make cuts. And finally, there's the athletes. So with the athletes, it wasn't, going to the games was earned and it wasn't given. Earning the right to go to the games was really challenging, and these guys put a lot of work and time and effort into getting to the games. At the first stage, the Open, super accessible and available to everyone. We try to make those workouts so people like myself all the way to Tia can do them, and the difference is fundamentally in the degree of intensity. That's going to be what separates my results and from her results. She's going to put out much higher numbers than I am, and so her challenge is going to be through intensity in the same effort that I'm doing. At the semifinal level, so now we have to program for a wide variety of highly capable athletes and not try to essentially catch any of them. Like, they should be able to perform everything and compete at a high level in everything that they see there. And then at the games now, and I've said this for decades, here at the games, we're testing for the best in the world. We're testing for the top 5, top 10, the people who are going to be the fittest on earth. And oftentimes there's a level of athlete, especially in the past, now they're more well-rounded, but there's a level of athlete that is not at that highest level yet, and that's okay. And so you worked really hard through these stages to get to the games, the ultimate test, and now you have to work really hard to stay in that test and to stay in the challenge. You have to, it's not charity. You're not there to just hang on and survive through several days, 4 days of competition. You essentially, as an athlete, have to earn your right to stay there in the games and to compete with the best in the world. And totally, I think that's totally okay, and I think that's totally appropriate for this event, especially after a few days of well-rounded assessment before advancing on. In addition to that, the cuts allow us to get really creative and do different things with the programming. Again, with this notion that we're testing for the fittest in the world, we're testing for the top, we're testing for the best. We can have some, as we reduce the size of the field, as athletes advance on in the competition, as they earn the right to advance, we are able to really do things differently. And so here's an example of that from 2 years ago when I was programming. One of the coolest events I think we've done at the games 21 and 20 was having a single platform on the floor, and where we cycled the athletes through the snatch event, the one where Brooke hurt her arm, and then I think the year before we did it as a clean, and just all eyes on them. They get a walk up, the spotlight's on them, the fans are on them, there's one single platform. That event would not have happened if we had 30 or 40 athletes there. That format. So there's different ways you could have done it with more platforms or with less people moving at the same time. But that unique way of putting the focus all on one is an example of how with cuts we're allowed to be a little more flexible and do things we wouldn't normally do because we reduce the size of the athletes, or we reduce the field of athletes. we had a call the other day at the PFAA, and so I talked about some of these concepts with them on why we're having the cuts. And I did say this. So fundamentally, this year the team was planning on having very minimal cuts towards the end of the weekend. And I came in and I said, no, we're gonna get a little more aggressive, which isn't that aggressive, but we're gonna have the cuts after Friday and then the cuts after Saturday, and then on Sunday we have the final field. And so at this point, I completely own the decision. If I wouldn't have been put back into this role right before a month and a half before the games, the cut schedule would have looked very differently. But I'm owning this. I believe it's the right thing to do for a variety of those reasons I just stated. And finally, everybody talks about the professionalization of sport, and they want it to be a more viewed as professional, etc. Things like this, these hard decisions and these hard formats that aren't popular are exactly what help us take it to the next level for professionalization. How many other sports out there don't have some sort of weeding down of their field, essentially? Even take a look at the track and field. People will fly to the Olympics after 4 years of training, go out there for a 100-meter dash, and after one 10-second race, or maybe 2 or 3, they're out of the competition. They're not advancing on. So I think these decisions, or this move with the cuts, actually takes us further forward in being professional, where at the end of the weekend we just don't have these multiple heats where we're just pulling people along throughout the competition to end up on the final day just because it's a more popular decision. So this year there's going to be athletes who will have to earn their way to compete in the subsequent days, and I think that's totally appropriate. They've had plenty of warning, and they'll have plenty of opportunity to prove that they deserve to advance on. All right, that was much longer than I thought it would be. Go ahead and drop comments in the comment section, and I will respond to a number of them next week. Thanks for watching.